for one thing, every book is different because my reasons for writing every book are different. And I tend to write books because I'm interested in exploring an idea, usually a specific idea, and everything that's in that particular book is me exploring something that I'm either interested in or I'm trying to work out for myself. And usually the book itself has been in my head for a very long time before I start writing it. So I usually start off with quite a few years of just probably having scenes and characters in my head, or having an idea of where I want to go with the book before I sit down and start writing it. So for example, when I first went to my agent with the first book I ever got published, although I was still in the process of writing that, which was a trilogy, I was already researching the book that I only have coming out next week, so that's 2008 to now. And I had just begun reading history books about the people that I knew were going to be in that book, and exploring the history of, say, slavery in Nevis, and the sugar industry in the 1700s, and all of which was just background material to a book I knew I wanted to write eventually. So that's years and years of research that possibly never show up, but because those things were reflecting the themes that I wanted to explore in that book, I would start reading about them. Each book is different. So some books, Into the Grey for example, I started with a scene in my head, it kind of sparked off a story which I had had in my head for years. I then realised that there were a few things I wanted to explore, themes I wanted to explore, and I thought the two things might go together. And when I sat down to write it, when it was ready in my head to write, I sat down and I just went, shoo, the whole book just came out in 6 months, like linear, chapter after chapter. There was no going back, and there's always going back and fixing it on a verbal level. I'm always going back and polishing the text, but the story itself just came out like a linear train coming out of a tunnel. It just poured out of me, and that's how Into the Grey happened. I didn't sit down and plot it. I didn't decide, well, I just kind of knew that there were things that were going to happen in the book, and then I just sat down and it all poured out of me. But there's other books I've written where I sit down and I'm actually going, well, I'm going to write out first a plan of what's going to happen in this chapter, and this chapter, and this chapter, and this chapter. And the book I'm writing at the moment, I've approached like that. And it's a very, very different way of writing, but it suits this particular book. So each book kind of comes out in its own technique.